Of the recorded 94 Canadians that flew in the Battle of Britain, 47, half, were killed. And yet their record of downed and damaged German planes was one of the highest of the battle. With me now is someone who knows what it must have been like. He flew a Spitfire in World War II, and his name is Arthur Bishop, a name that might ring a bell with you. Yes, he's also the son of Billy Bishop. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
Watching that film and thinking of myself in a cockpit with, planes this way and that way and up, and how could they make sense of that hell in the skies?
Well, I must say, I want to say one thing. I played that film just the other day over again, and the thing that was, it raised the hackles of my just to see the Spitfires flying again. I mean, beautiful, beautiful shots of the Spitfires. And it looks like utter confusion, which actually, once you got in the air, it was. The big trick, though, is with training and practice. You got to sort of look around, and what the American ace, Eddie Rickenbacker, called the feeling of the air. In other words, you got to know, could see where planes were coming from, and you had to think very quickly. It wasn't quite as confused as it looked once you got used to it.
Despite the Allies being so outnumbered, we had radar. This was new at that point.
It was new, and it was one of the key factors in being able to control the Battle of Britain from the controller's standpoint, was that they knew when they were coming in. It wasn't a surprise. They didn't have to mount a patrol over the channel, for instance, and wait and see. They knew when they were coming, where they were coming from, and virtually how many of them there were and what height and so on. So that was a very, very strong factor in being able to get planes up in time to do this.
This critical thing that even a 10-minute delay of getting the pilots in the air can...
Well, it might have been too late. I mean, the difference might have been to stop a bomber from coming in and dropping its bombs right on a target than it would stop him before he got to it. And that was the whole point.
We've heard in other periods of the war that if a pilot flew, let's say, 30 missions, that was, incredible. These guys were flying sometimes 4 and 5 missions a day?
Yeah, they were pretty tired out. They tried to juggle it okay, but they're pretty tired out. They couldn't last that for very long, because it got on your nerves and so on. There were a lot of them that just packed it in. They had to give them a rest and then they come back, because they were flying an awful lot.
How much did this sort of image of the Luftwaffe, I mean, they had seen how powerful an air force that had been in Europe as country after country fell.
Well, the thing was that it's a one-on-one sort of situation, really, once you get in there. I mean, you're singling out a single target. You're not taking on the whole German Air Force. So that you're thinking about yourself mainly, and you're thinking about the guy the individual that's going to get you or isn't going to, because a whole lot of planes aren't going to get you. It's going to be one guy that's going to get you. So I think there's a sort of a mental thing here that people think of great clashes. It wasn't like that. It was once a bunch of aircraft got, say, in the hundreds, it was a one-on-one. I mean, it was everybody for himself.
But even that idea in the back of your mind, when you're going to go one-on-one with a pilot who's probably, especially during the Battle of Britain, probably had more experience than you, rumored perhaps to have even a better aircraft than you. I mean, what must that do to the confidence?
Well, it didn't. I don't think that for a moment that any of, I'm not just speaking Canadians, but yeah. I don't think that they thought that the Germans were any better. I think they thought they had a bit of an advantage because they were they were taking a defensive position. They could wait and get at them. And really, they were about equal in aircraft and when it came to...
You mean quality of aircraft,
quality of aircraft,
numbers.
And probably quality of... Well, pilot, that's a different thing. I mean, there were a lot of inexperienced pilots, but there were also some very professional experienced pilots that had been flying before the war. So that this sort of thing evens out, and I think that the experience they gain, I mean, some people gain experience very quickly. Maybe 2 or 3 flights was enough to make the guy build up his confidence enough that he knew exactly what he was doing.
One of the key factors also, as I understand it, and we saw a little bit in the film, was, of course, the Germans coming over only had so much fuel. They could only stay in the air, whereas the Allies could, didn't have
they didn't have that problem.
Maneuver more.
Oh yeah, they didn't have that problem. No, the Messerschmitt 109's limited range was to about south of London. Could fool around for a few minutes and then had to get back.
Was there towards the end when the numbers became evident to everyone? Was there a feeling of that you almost beat the Goliath? That, I don't mean you, but the people you knew who had flown in the Battle of Britain?
Well, I don't think anybody thought in terms of numbers. They thought in terms of the individual scores, yes, but not in overall numbers. They didn't mean a hell of a lot anyway, because in the final analysis, what happened was the RAF really didn't beat the Luftwaffe. What it did, it denied them the possibility of being able to, the Germans of being able to launch an invasion, because without total air cover they couldn't do it, and they denied them that thing. I mean, the Germans still had a lot of air force left when the Battle of Britain was all over. And remember, another thing is that the Battle of Britain only lasted 114 days, believe it or not, from like the middle of July to the end of October. It wasn't a long, drawn-out thing, but it was, the Germans were convinced that because they walked through everything else, that they could obliterate the RAF, get rid of it, then they wouldn't have a problem, even with the British Navy, because the day of the warship was gone by then. You could eliminate it from the air. But the Germans did not have, and never did have that air cover, and as the Battle of Britain went on, and beyond that, we started to go into their territory. Well, then they knew it was game over. They had to look somewhere else.
But it was that Battle of Britain and those pilots doing
it
those
stopped
one-on-ones.
It changed it. It was the bulwark that stopped it. That was it.
Thank you very, very much for coming and talking to us. And thank you very, very much for the times and the flights that you took.
Thank you.
Thanks. And that's our look at history and history on film. I'm Ann Medina.